Hi, I'm Molly Cordy, founder of Project Just Like You. I began this journey after my son Jacob was diagnosed with autism in 2016. I jumped into sharing stories to show how we are all more alike than different. It started as a social media campaign and became a nonprofit as of last summer. I'm so glad you're here with us. So thank you for being with us for February's Heart Month. If Heart Month is something personal to you, please click the share button and share with your friends so others can learn about us. If you'd like to sponsor a story, you can click on the donate button at Facebook. Every little bit helps. Today is Movement Monday, a new initiative of Project Just Like You. And we have with us Kelly Blumenthal, and she's going to help us with understanding the CHD and the Heart Month. And we are looking for, as we continue these talks, we're looking for people who support and advocate for inclusion and anyone else who you think you might find interesting as champions of people with special needs. Join our movement by watching these Movement Mondays each week. Movement Mondays are produced by Fiat Media, so we want to give them a huge shout out. Thank you so much. They make this possible. You can also check them out on the Facebook page of Fiat Ministry. Excuse me. I hope you'll take a minute to click the share button. And tonight we're really excited because Sweet Frog is sponsoring our show tonight. And anyone who contributes a relevant question to our live will be entered for a random drawing for a small Sweet Frog. And we'll pick that later on this evening. So thank you for your support, Sweet Frog. And so make sure to comment and ask lots of questions. So we're going to start in just a moment. But before we do, if you're following us right now, we'd love to know where you're from. So if you could please put where you're from in the comment field, we'd like to know, because we know we have people within the U.S. and we also have followers around the globe. We're also going to monitor our comments tonight. So please post as many questions as you like. And remember, you also are entering yourselves in for the Sweet Frog yogurt. Welcome, Kelly. We are so excited to have you tonight. Kelly Blumenthal is a mom of 2 boys, ages 3 and 4 years old. She originally is from Richmond, Virginia. Yay, we claim Kelly. But moved to Fredericksburg, Virginia 8 years ago after her husband, Michael, accepted a job at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Kelly's younger son, Finn, has battled a complex heart disease since birth, enduring months of hospital stays, 14 procedures, and 2 open heart surgeries. Kelly is a stay-at-home mom and spends her time taking care of Mason and Finn, while also devoting many hours to volunteer work. Welcome, Kelly. How are you?
Hello, I am great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for being with us tonight. We are so happy to have you and for you to spend your evening with us, Kelly. So thank you. So Kelly, let's start by talking about your journey with Finn. Can you take us back to the beginning of your experience when you first found out about Finn? Tell us about the progress of your journey.
Sure. I talk a lot, so I'll try and keep it just but
talk away, friend.
So we went through 5 years of infertility. We had twin girls and lost them. And after the loss, I had a couple of abdominal surgeries, including a rupture. So at that point, we were told that the chances of getting pregnant were pretty much none. But we still went through with IVF just to give everything a last chance. And it did fail, which we were kind of expecting. And we were 6 months into the adoption process, found out that we were pregnant with our first son, Mason, and he was born completely healthy. And Mason was only 5 months old, and we found out that we were pregnant again with Finn. So I actually found out at the 19-week anatomy scan with Finn that he was, if he was able to make it to birth, that he would have pretty complex heart disease. In a nutshell, it's a lot of different names, but a normal heart has 4 chambers, and Finn does not have any chambers in his heart. So his deoxygenated and oxygenated blood is mixing. He's not getting proper oxygen to any of his extremities, but specifically his upper extremities, which of course are very important, like your lungs and your brain. So when he was born, after a couple of days, he finally made it into the 60s for oxygen. And of course, you can't go very, long with that. And was able to eventually get a little higher with corrective surgeries. But pretty much the thing about Finn from on paper was that doctors predicted that he either wouldn't make it at all, or he would have 3 open heart surgeries. It's called staged surgery. And the reason why they do that is because if you fix everything at once, it's a shock to the body. And these babies are already trying to use their energy to grow and eat, which is a lot. And doing that much so quickly, the chances of survival are very low. So they do it in stages over the course of the first 3 years of their life when it's this complex. And this is about 25% of the kids born with congenital heart defects. So they were predicting that he would either not make it at all, or that he would have this 3-stage process and just rock these surgeries, because some kids do. Some kids go home in 4 days after these open heart procedures, and it's amazing. Wow. And we got a journey that was in the middle. And ended up basically spending the majority of the first year of his life in the hospital. He had many complications. At one point, he was going down into the operating room every week for about 6 weeks in a row, getting more support, whether it was a chest tube or a feeding tube. And it was very scary. 2 times we almost lost him, and we're pretty sure that we wouldn't be bringing him home. But somehow he made it and was able to come home. We were home for around 11 months, in and out of the hospital for little things. When a child is fragile like that and has low oxygen and heart disease, something as simple as a very small cold that you or I or Mason would be able to get over in a couple of days and some orange juice can be very deadly for them. So we were in the hospital pretty frequently, every other month or so, for a couple of days to a week. But after about 11 months at home, he started to not reach his milestones. From October until December of that year. He'd been doing really well previously, and he didn't make any of his milestones, and he was actually regressing. And my gut told me that it was his heart. So we went in and did a CT scan, and there was some things that pointed to, that it might be, but there would need to be further testing. But my gut told me he was going to need a repair. I had seen this before in him throughout the first year of his life when he was really battling everything. So my gut just kind of told me that this wasn't going to go well. And so we searched the whole country for places that would be able to not just accept him as a case, but would be able to get him the complex care that he needed. Because at this point, we had learned about Finn that he had a condition called heterotaxy in addition to his heart conditions. And that affected more than just his heart. We found out throughout his life that he had his lungs are reversed. He had a brain condition called heterotopia, which we discovered after he began having seizures. So we get an MRI for that. He has what's called malrotation. So your bowel is supposed to be in the shape of a C for things to flow smoothly, and his is corkscrew. So he was slow to empty, and he was having a hard time keeping food down. And he was already exhausted eating the food, just many things that just kept adding up. So we wanted to make sure that we put him in a place that could not only handle his heart condition, but could handle all of these other curveballs that he was going to throw. And we very easily, as soon as we spoke to them, settled on the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And they followed us through every single step, trying to do testing and prevent everything every type of curveball that he could possibly throw, knowing that he would need this next open heart surgery, which would have been his 14th procedure. And he went into the open heart surgery. We were very scared. We hadn't received such good news from them 2 weeks prior when they did their own research on him and did a cath. It was very scary. So we went into it not really knowing what was going to happen. And the surgery was completed in less than 5 hours. The actual repair was 37 minutes, and he came home in a week. So
amazing.
It was a true miracle. We're so grateful. And he's been thriving ever since. So his prognosis for the future is very good. He will be able to go to kindergarten. He will be able to go to prom. He'll be able to do everything. Most kids of his complexity and with these stage surgeries do need a valve replacement in adulthood. That could mean age 18. It could mean age 80. So we are right now dependent on technology, which is why we're so passionate about raising awareness and funds for critical heart research. Because if he needed a valve replacement tomorrow, it would be another open chest, open heart procedure. But fast forward to when he's an adult, the chances of that happening are pretty unlikely. We're hoping there's a medication or even a laparoscopic procedure. So the chances of that happening and them needing to open his chest again are pretty low, which is great. But he still has a feeding tube in his stomach. He's medication dependent on that. So several times a day, we have to give him medicine through it because he's not at the point yet where he can take everything by mouth. He gets aversion and stops eating completely. It's a pretty large quantity of medicine. So we're working on that. He's very behind on physical therapy because he was bedridden for so long. So we're working on that. We have a goal of hopefully beginning some type of preschool part-time in the fall once he's 1 year post-op so that he can be by himself and not need assistance safely if he were to trip and fall or anything like that. We want to make sure his chest is, the bone has fused, and that takes about a year. But his prognosis is very good. He's been playing. He's had so much energy. He's basically a normal toddler energy-wise now. He'll always be a little bit more tired than other kids as he gets older. Track is probably not going to be his thing. It can be his thing. He just might not do very well. Hey, you never know. But it's just amazing. He will never be able to join the military because of his condition. He will not be able to play contact sports like rugby or football because of chest. But I'm okay with that. But he loves water and loves, he's just like you. He loves water, loves paw patrol. He draws colors. He loves the slide, and he's doing really well. So it's, you would never know that he had all this or went through it. And we're very grateful that he had such a great result from the surgery. His entire team is just very thrilled, and we are as well.
That is so incredible, Kelly. And, every single time I hear your story, because, I've been following Finn from the time he was born, it still just touches me. Like it's just such a beautiful story of your faith and of, excuse me, Kelly, you have a question, of your faith and of who you are. And, we also, hold on. Excuse me, just a second. We want to say hi to the audience. We have Kimberly and Marge, Patty, Denise, and Melanie on with us. Welcome. We are so glad that you're part of this tonight. We would love, if you have any questions for Kelly, please let us know. We are routing those questions as we continue on this dialogue. Anyways, going back to you, Kelly, every time you tell the story, it still gives me goosebumps. It still is just so amazing. And speaking of activities, you guys go around and do the Jump for Heart. Tell us about that.
Yes, it's an incredible program. We've been going to the schools for Jump Rope for Heart since he was just a couple weeks over a year old. And originally we just kind of did it, as a service project to get out of the house and also raise awareness. And it's amazing, but immediately we noticed that he was just really passionate about it, even at just such a young age. He was very alert during it, even though technically he was still really tired from, being in the hospital for so long. He was very alert. He was very interested in his surroundings and what was happening. And he also began to be very motivated without knowing it. And what I mean by that is he came home at a newborn level, even though he was, 8-9 months old. And he made a little bit of progress. We were working on head control, that you would at a newborn level. But when we started going around with the schools, when he was, just about a year old, he was only going around with the schools for about 3 weeks, and he was already sitting up on his own, which is pretty incredible. And I don't mean sitting up like, 100%. But he could actually sit up, and we could, kind of hold him. And he couldn't fully sit up until about 13, months onto 16 for, long time, but actually being able to hold himself up and hold his head up and balance his head with only about 3 weeks. And elementary schools, the kids are, begin around age 5, 6, and up. So these are older kids. He's very intrigued by them. He sort of wants to be like them. They're his heroes. Ever since, he's just had a really big passion for it. And the noise didn't bother him. I think just because he's been used to all the beeps and noises in the hospital room. He just was he loved it. And this is a kid who had major sensory issues coming out of the hospital. So it's been amazing to spread the awareness about heart disease, but it's also been so beneficial for him socially and from a physical therapy standpoint. And it just makes him truly happy. He goes into the schools and he's just on, and I just kind of sit back and
watch it all.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Like understand if you've actually, been there, but he just kind of knows that this is his thing, and something that he wants, and he just loves it. He gets to talk to the kids, and that's really helped with his speech as well. He's been in therapy since basically born, but it has, from a speaking standpoint, it's been for eating. And we're amazed that he had a tube down his throat for almost the first 9 months of his life. And we were told he probably would have major speaking issues because of that. And we've never had to have speech therapy, and his speech is at a 4.5-year level, and he just turned 3. And
that's amazing, Kelly.
Yes. And I think that besides the fact that I talk a lot, so I'll take 1%, I think most of it is honestly due to the fact that he is in the schools, and he's very engaged in that conversation with them about which character is on their shirt or what color is on their backpack.
Right.
So it's just helped him in so many ways, and it's been amazing to see his progress. And now that this is the 3rd year, it's been great for the kids who've been there at the same school over and over. They remember him as a baby in a stroller, and then last year being able to walk, but not really, he couldn't run. And now he's like a ping pong ball all over, and he's so happy, and he doesn't need breaks. And it's just such a joy as a parent. And I think also for the schools to see his progress, but also that, the money that they're raising for the American Heart Association through Jump Rope for Heart is truly, we are a direct recipient of this heart research. It's a direct recipient, and then it's helping not just kids, like them, but they know that if it's helping Finn, it's also helping Grandpa Joe. It's also helping, their neighbor Sally. It's right. The money goes to heart research in general, so it's helping everyone. So I think that's really neat for them to see, and such a great support system as well. But he absolutely loves it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And he every time you see him in pictures, he's always charming the teachers and charming the administration. And he really knows how to work a crowd, Kelly.
And he's been very not shy. Understatement this year. If teacher gets on the ground and is doing push-ups to show the kids, heart healthy, exercises, he just runs and jumps on their back and on them, and but he's learned so many things this year already that he's learning how to dribble a ball. He's learning how to rock climb, rock climbing walls. There was one place that had like a mini trampoline. He's learning, different types of climbing, and it just really helps him so much because the jump rope, the actual pep rallies, which we go to. And then sometimes the pep rallies are also integrated with their actual jumping event, but not everyone can jump, or maybe they don't have enough jump ropes. So they have different stations to do heart healthy cardio. And then, for instance, we also go to middle schools, high schools, colleges, preschools, anyone that wants to have a program. So in colleges, it's more intense, the high schools, it's more intense. And they do what's called Heart Chase. And he's able to go on scooters, and they normally have some type of Marine or Army there to talk about, workouts and proper way to distribute your weight on your arms and your legs. And he's able to participate in that as well. And it's just really neat to see. It's a wonderful program. The kids love it. They get very into it, whether he's there or not, they get very into it. And it's great to not just teach them about having their own heart health be stable, but also that they're helping others as well.
Absolutely. I want to go back to something you said earlier, Kelly. You were saying that where this money is going to, and you look at the face of Finn and you see that sweet little face and you put it to that and say, well, there's where the money's going. And it's saving children like Finn. It's saving, all these beautiful children who have CHD, and you see them now thriving. And it's, in your situation, you see them thriving, and you say, oh my gosh, this money is really going to a good place. And it's incredible.
Yeah.
Kelly, we have a question.
Oh.
This is from Kelly, from Kimberly and Kelly. Is that right? This is from Kimberly. Yeah. Kimberly wants to know, how do you juggle it all, Kelly?
This is a pure, honest answer. I'm just crazy. I have some fire in me that, I feel like when you're passionate about something, it just kind of comes to you, which I'm sure you know as well. You have 3 children and one with special needs and running a nonprofit all at the same time in daily life. Yeah. I feel like there's something in you that sparks that you have passion about, whether it's running a nonprofit or going to schools all the time for Jump Rope for Heart, or even if it's just your daily life, you're really passionate about art or yoga or pottery or bike riding, whatever you're passionate about. I feel like when you have that spark in you, somehow you're just able to do it. And that's truly the answer. I do also take care of myself too. If I feel like I'm getting sick, I go to the doctor and I make sure that, I'm care of myself, but I'm also not giving it, to my kids. Drinking water is also, really helpful, things like that. But honestly, it's just passion that really, everyone has it one aspect or another. And I feel like that's 100% where it comes from.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you on that. And I don't know if it's something the people in the special needs world who do activism or who do advocacy work, if we just feel that drive 10 times more, because we know if we're not advocating for our child, then nobody else is. So I can 100% relate to that, Kelly. We also want to welcome Lori, Tiffany, and Kelly. Thank you for joining us tonight. And if you have a question, please do. We're giving away a sweet frog. We're giving away a free sweet frog tonight. So please, we love questions. And we're going to continue on the conversation with Kelly Blumenthal, who is Prayers for Finn on Facebook. And if you've been following her journey of Finn, you'll know that this is such an amazing story she has to share. So Kelly, as far as the stats go, we don't know much about those stats, like to the everyday person. Can you tell us what they are and how many people are affected by CHD?
Sure. So CHD affects 1 in 100 babies, which is also 1% of all births. Mm. And Virginia, which is where we are, both of us, that was over 40,000 births last year. So quite of children, it is the number of birth defects in babies. So it's quite a bit. There's quite a large community. 25% of those 1 in 100 babies will need an open heart surgery to survive. But honestly, the chances of survival for all CHD are so much higher now. I saw a statistic the other day, and don't quote me, but I think it's like of all CHDs, whether it's something like a murmur that you just follow all the way up to kids like Finn, I want to say the survival rate is high 90s, which is amazing. Whereas before,
that is amazing.
Whereas before it was very, very low just 10 years ago, because of the lack of knowledge, technology, medicine. And again, I could be totally wrong on this. This is all through, my, and when I talk to doctors when I'm out, and just curiosity. But that's quite a bit. And it's actually really interesting because a lot of people who've known about our journey sometimes, follow just for general support or just curiosity. And it's very frequent that I get messages that they had only started following for curiosity or support, and then now know someone directly, whether it's a friend circle or a family circle that has had a baby born with CHD, and they don't feel scared or nervous because they know that, like I mentioned before, they normally, with this complexity, probably don't make it or, rock these surgeries. And we kind of had, the in-between, a really, really wild ride. So even though it's not the normal CHD journey of what we had, I just hope that it brings hope to those instead of scares them that do get on this very small percent of the wild ride that we went on, that there's definitely hope in the end. You just have to hang on, but it's becoming a larger community as the ultrasound techs are able to detect it a lot easier with better technology.
That's excellent. And, I think you hit on the word hope, Kelly. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why your story in particular with Finn is so inspiring to other people, and why you have such a following now is because you offer so much hope in your story, and you offer so much positive vibes, and excuse me, I'm sorry. We have another question. And so, it's just wonderful the way that your message resonates with people and how you're able to help your community so much. Oh, it's amazing, Kelly. We have another question for you from Kimberly. She wants to know, what does CHD, this is a great question, what does CHD mean to you now? Thank you, Kimberly, for your question. This is a good one.
Really wants that sweet frog.
Yeah. I love it.
So Kimberly, so CHD a lot of people debate if it's congenital heart disease and congenital heart defects. It's both. But so what it meant to me before this journey, when I first found out, which is what a lot of people say when I meet them, is our heart families. When you first find out, you are absolutely devastated. It's a feeling that I can't really describe, probably similar to when you got Jacob's first, diagnosis. It's because you are not prepared. Nothing will prepare you really. And you go out and you sit in this OB office, or if you're at your pediatrician and they're hearing a murmur and they think it's bad, you're sitting in your pediatrician's office and you look around you and there is no pamphlet, no poster, no information whatsoever. Even though it's the number one defect in babies, there's not any information at all in any OB office, in any pediatrician's office. And it's very doom and gloom. As other parents will tell you, you feel very alone. You feel that there is no hope, and you basically feel like you're the only one. And everyone takes that very differently. And then they say, don't stress when you're pregnant. So you're trying not to, stress, which is pretty much impossible. So before, it definitely meant fear and, feeling hopeless and helpless. And now that everything has had more perspective, and I say this not just because we've had a good outcome now, because at the end of the day, something could still happen tomorrow. He could have a heart attack. His likelihood of having something happen is a lot higher than, say, Mason's. He's not fixed. There's no fix. There's no cure for CHD. But I want to make it definitely clear that I don't say this just because we've had an outcome. once I became educated on it, once I met other families and networked and knew that we weren't alone, it was definitely a different light. And now it means strength and triumph and celebration for every milestone that these kids reach, small or large. It definitely means celebration of that and sticking together.
That's awesome. I also want to welcome, just real fast, I also want to welcome Charlie to our program. Charlie, welcome. We're so glad you're part of this tonight. This has been such a good audience here tonight. Okay, so what advice do you have for new parents, Kelly, that have CHD? You talked about this some. What are the resources that they have?
Yeah, I was going to say the advice would definitely be educate yourself. And, everybody says don't Google, but, it really is helpful to just see things, whether you're seeing the extreme or the better, it's just better to know kind of everything. And then take that and definitely visit, the doctors, advocate. If you meet with a doctor and you're not comfortable with the options that they give you, you can go and get a second opinion, a third opinion. We were at the time when we found out about his diagnosis, we were kind of on a time, limit just because they were worried that he was going to pass and be stillborn. But we still were making calls everywhere in the state of Virginia, trying to get more information on this and which doctors could help us and where we needed to go. So definitely educate yourself. And one of the biggest things is whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or calling a local, Mended Little Hearts, network with other families because they have such different journeys, but the biggest thing that they all have connected is just hope and support. And no matter what their outcome is, they're very passionate about making sure that other families don't have to go through as much of that doom and gloom that we originally go through in the beginning, that there is so much triumph and strength. And these kids are so resilient. It's, amazing. So I feel like that's definitely important. And resources, most, CHD kids, they're going to be at some type of children's hospital. Those normally have a Ronald McDonald House. They have wonderful local sources of meetings or communities or dinners or events. So the Ronald McDonald House is an absolutely amazing source. And it's also usually connected to the children's hospital where you're staying. So that is a wonderful source. Of course, the American Heart Association can give you tons of research statistics and information and rankings of doctors and all sorts of stuff. It's a huge, wide, basically encyclopedia, which is amazing on their site. Children's Heart Foundation and the Pediatric Congenital Heart Foundation. I'm going to mix that up. Sorry, my brain is on Heart Month.
There's so many different organizations.
Yeah, those are great for support and funding research. And then Mended Little Hearts, they have many chapters all over the country in every state. That is also a wonderful support system. All heart moms local to you, usually going to the same children's hospital as you or have been to the same children's hospital. And they just provide different things from meetings to get-togethers to special things in the hospital, little gift things in the hospital that will help you that you don't know that you needed. So lots and lots of organizations out there that I wish that I had known in the beginning, that I would love for other people to know now and be able to reach out when they feel it's the right time.
Awesome. Yeah. And we have up on the screen the different resources page. So if you are a new parent and you need to tap into some of those resources, we do have that up on the screen for you. And we hope that you will utilize those resources and you will get connected in with the CHD community. And we have another question, Kelly.
Oh,
yay. Lori asks, how have you and Finn educated local EMS community?
Oh, that's such a cool question.
That's a great question. Thank you, Lori.
Who this is, Lauren. So that's been such an honor. So I'll try to make this a really quick story, but it's really special. So at one point, Finn was med flown, and I hope I'm using these terms right. Again, disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I'm just a mom. So Finn was med flown at one point, and it was very, very scary. He wasn't doing well at home. He wasn't breathing right. We didn't have the tools that we needed to take care of him at home. Unknowingly, we took him to the pediatrician and his oxygen was 40. And it was really, really scary. And it was literally a minute by minute thing. We didn't know what was going on. The local hospital didn't even have time to do testing because they just knew he needed to get to a children's hospital. So we were med flown, and the nurse's name was Amy, and she was amazing. I could not go in the helicopter because the hospital was over 2 hours away, and I needed to make sure I had transportation there. So my mom actually flew with him. She was with me at the time because I had called her, to come over, like, hey, can you help me? I might have to take him to the pediatrician. So she flew with Finn and Amy, and I drove and tried to, meet them there. So Amy was so sweet at that point. After she dropped us off, you sometimes never know what happens, to the kids. You just kind of hope for the best, as a flight nurse. And my mom had told Amy about the page. So she knew, where we were. And she reached out and said, when she was in the area, so she could, basically land on the roof of the hospital so she could come by. So Amy came to visit Finn a couple times at the hospital. It was very brief, because they were dropping off a patient. But we really networked well. She's an amazing person. She's an incredible flight nurse. And once we came home from the hospital, we were able to go to a couple of conferences with her, one at the Mary Washington Stafford campus when Finn was a little over a year old. And she was teaching classes, I think, every hour, multiple times in a row that day. And we were able to be in the classes and tell the EMS, educate them about CHD, that, just because you put a pulse ox on and it says 80 doesn't mean you have to rush and intubate them. May have those parameters. CHD kids sometimes have a very low parameter of, oxygen. Their normal may be 88. There were times where I celebrate if Finn was 88, and some people would be scared. So we spoke at that event, which was really amazing. And then last year, exactly this time around this week, we spoke at, she was having another kind of training session at our local fire station in Fredericksburg. And we were able to speak there as well. We absolutely love all of the EMS individuals, whether they're work or volunteer. We absolutely love them. We've unfortunately met a lot of them, not just through the conferences, but we've had a couple of 911 scares at home. They came and were so helpful. We were even able to go, and after almost 2 years of searching, I was finally able to be connected to the 911 responder in my area who picked up the phone on Thanksgiving night when Finn was having seizures, and I didn't know that's what was happening. So I was able to go visit her and bring her some dinner and the whole team and give her a big hug. It's amazing how many people are involved. You think it's just, that 1 or 2 or 3 people that show up from the fire department or, the ambulance, the EMTs, and it's such a huge team. So it was really great and inspiring to be able to meet all of them from even behind the scenes and thank them. So any conferences that we get invited to, even if it's just to hang out and be able to give them a hug, even if we don't even know them, we just want to be able to. So thank you, Lori, if it's who I think it is. The EMS community is super important and special, and there's just so much that goes on that people don't even know. So we're very grateful for that.
Yes, the EMS team is incredible. I mean, they just do amazing things, and they kind of come, I'm sure, like, especially being in the CHD community, they just kind of become part of your whole village.
Yes. And it's, for a while, every time there was an ambulance on my block, all the neighbors would think it was Finn. And now, luckily, it's not, because he's good, guys. and be like, you guys okay? I'm like, it's the house down. We're good. But they're just incredible. So any opportunities we have to educate anyone, whether it's, a mom's group or a EMS, conference or anything, it was truly an honor to speak to the EMS teams because, again, this is becoming more common, and some kids go home and they do great, for a year, and all of a sudden they have that 911 call, and things can go downhill very quickly if the child is already experiencing low oxygen because of their heart disease. So it was very important and inspiring for us to be able to have those several opportunities.
Absolutely. We have another question, Kelly. This is from Kimberly again.
Kimberly.
I know, she's asking some awesome questions here.
I love Kimberly.
She's great. For parents about to experience seeing their child immediately after open heart surgery, what's your advice for what they're about to see?
Oh, that is a good one. And honestly, everyone is different. So with Finn, the paperwork that the hospital gave me was a pencil drawing, and all it showed was an IV, a bandage on his chest, and a chest tube. And that is not what I saw. I had parents sending me pictures from our journey from the very beginning when we knew we were going to schedule this surgery, sending me everything from a chest wide open and seeing their heart beating. It hadn't been closed yet, more wires than I've ever seen, and to the point where the child's face wasn't even recognizable because it was so swollen, and all of the tubes and the tape and the wires, to a child coming out of open heart surgery with basically what that drawing had shown me from the original, surgery, the pamphlet. So knowing that there was a variety and knowing from other parents that it may not go as planned, for me personally was very helpful. It was shocking to see, and I had a sinking pit in my stomach, and it wasn't even my child, so I couldn't imagine. I had PTSD before it even happened. However, in the end, it ended up being extremely helpful because I hadn't even known that leaving their chest open was an option. And seeing those photos and asking about it was able to prompt me to ask my doctor before surgery if that was an option, and if so, what was going to happen. And his chest actually was open for a while, and we did not see it because they decided to go ahead and close it because at the end of the day, there was nothing they could do anyways with the first surgery. So they ended up closing it, but it was open for a while. And I was so grateful that I had seen those photos because when the surgeon came up and told us originally that his chest was still open, I personally was prepared. Some people can't do that, and I totally, understand. And just know that if you can't and you need to step out, do not feel guilty. Do not feel like you're not being there for your child. Everyone is completely different, and the nurses would always tell me we're the best babysitters. So, whether you're in the room or not, your child is going to be very well taken care of, and they're going to do great. So if you need to take a moment for you and walk out, or you need to ask them to, let you see it slowly, and if they're allowed to put some type of sterile covering over it, whatever you need to do, just make sure that you let them know if you're not prepared. I've even had some parents tell me that they gave their cell phone to the nurse and said, can you take a picture first so I can see it before I come in? And they said that was helpful. So I feel like that's basically up to the individual. But for me personally, I was glad that I got those photos because I was able to ask our team prior to surgery, I need you to give me worst case scenario because I want to make sure I'm prepared. So that way, if things go well, I'm surprised and I'm happy. And if they don't go well, then I'm prepared. This is a horrible example, but every time my husband wants to watch some new movie, I'm like, you better tell me if there's gore in it because I need to be prepared. Right. It's not something I can't really handle all of that. Sometimes I'm able to handle it in the hospital with my child somehow. But I can't do that. So I have to say, I don't care if it sounds like a sweet movie. I need to know if there's any gore in it. So for me personally, it was being prepared, but everyone is different. But just definitely, ask questions if you need to, because every surgery is different. Every child is different. I feel like there's no one size fits all for open heart surgery. I feel like that's with every human, whether you're a child or an adult, something is going to be different for each human, whether they put the IV in a different spot or whether something needs to be kept in longer or drains longer or looks different draining. So I feel like all of that is really important to just ask, all the necessary questions so that you're prepared, and also be vocal when you don't feel that something would, be very comfortable, for you, to just make sure you ask your team what the options are to make it a little bit more comfortable, because at the end of the day, your child is definitely going to be taken care of in that cardiac ICU by the best nurses and doctors.
Absolutely. If you're just tuning in now, we are with Kelly Blumenthal for Prayers for Finn. We want to welcome Kathy and Kristen, who have just joined our conversation. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Hello.
Hi. Kelly, you're now the admin of a tiny little Facebook page called Prayers for Finn. Why was that started? And what is responsible for your growing reach?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. So a lot of people think it's probably, me that started it, and why not? It's a great way, to network with other families and, get prayers. And I truly believe that prayer has been so powerful for him. So we actually didn't tell anyone about Finn's condition. Like I mentioned, it was very doom and gloom. And I was already so stressed out myself that we just made the decision not to say anything to anyone, because we knew that now they were going to be stressed and that was going to make us more stressed. And there was just all these questions that we didn't have the answers to until he was born. It was very stressful. So he was born January 2nd. And on New Year's Eve was when we finally let everyone know that we weren't really sure what was going to happen, and that, we were hoping for a new year and a good year with, life for him. And it was obviously very shocking, for everyone, including, family, friends. So the first couple of days of Finn's life, so I had a planned C-section because of the stress of his heart. It was already going to be stressed in general, and they didn't want a natural birth to stress it more if there were complications. So I was a planned C-section. And I personally had pretty severe complications during the anesthetic process of the C-section. And my stress during it was starting to cause stress to him. So I ended up being put under completely. They tried to block me 3 times with a spinal and twice with an epidural, and it wasn't working. And then when it did work, it was only my right side, and it was almost like complete, I don't want to say like paralyzed, but I mean, I had nothing, not even like anything, hearing, eye, nothing. So it was pretty scary. So that was a pretty big complication. And at this point, I was also getting too much anesthetic in myself, and they were worried it was going to affect him. So I was put under completely. And I was very drugged up and having reactions from this for the first couple of days. And I was having a lot of family and friends reach out to me asking for updates. This first hospital was in the mountains, and we had no service. And it was a game of telephone. We were trying to update people, and one person was hearing another thing. One person was hearing that he had already passed. Another person was hearing he was coming home that day. It was very confusing, very stressful. So I called my college friend, Brittany, to vent, and I was just crying. And, I was like, I don't know what to do. And she said, why don't I create a community page for you, and you guys can do one update with pictures or writing or whatever you want, send it to me. And then that way you don't have to worry, and people can visit it anytime they want. They don't have to, bug you guys, and you can just spend time with your baby. And that was on, I believe, the 3rd day that he had been born. And it was a godsend. I just sent one update to Brittany at the end of the day or morning or, wherever. And she was wonderful in being able to filter, so many so many things, you know, like questions or concerns. And she was also able to inform me that there were so many more CHD families, which again, I had no idea until the page happened. So when Finn was about 3 weeks old, I was finally starting to feel better and getting a grasp with this whole heart mom thing, and his condition. So I took over the page when he was about 3 weeks old. And so that's how it started. And as for the reach, I'm not really sure. Either talk a lot or I'm not really sure. But we have so many people who are just, you know, so supportive, and we're very grateful for that. Whether you're a stranger, and no one on the page is a stranger, you know, but they always say they are, you know, if they've been following for a long time and they message and say, I wanted to message you, but I feel bad, but I feel like I know you. I'm like, you do. And everyone on that page is family, because if you've said one prayer for him or you've sent good thoughts or anything, we are so grateful, because it has brought him so far, and we will never be able to thank people enough for that. And it's also been very therapeutic for me. I never realized how much writing was therapeutic for me. I can't write, you know, like a book per se. Well, maybe I could, but it might be like an encyclopedia. But you know, just kind of like an online, you know, journal for me. And this new time hop thing on Facebook has been really great and helpful to see how far he's come, and the reminders, and you know, again, just the triumphs and the strengths, and looking back of how uneducated I was, and now the reach, and being able to network with some of the most amazing, you know, fellow special needs parents. Whether it's a broken leg or a broken heart, it's the same emotion. So it's really great to be able to have that that network and have us all help each other. So many people helped me in the beginning, and now hopefully I'm able to help people, and those people will one day be able to help people. And that's kind of all what it's about. But it's definitely been so therapeutic, and great to see, you know, how far he's come, and network with people. We're very grateful.
That's fantastic. Yes, it's like the gift that keeps giving, paying it forward.
Yes, and we'll keep doing it until he says no, and then I don't know what.
Kelly, we have another question.
Sure.
This is from Kristen. Kristen wants to know, how do you have the energy to go back and forth to the schools?
Oh, well, all right. So again, I think it's just a passion thing, but if you don't know me personally, you wouldn't know that all of the jobs that I've ever had in my life prior to being a stay-at-home mom were never sit-down desk jobs. I've always just had the personality that I like being able to physically do something. I'm not sure why, but that's just kind of my personality. So I worked at a tractor trailer place, Fortune 500 company, rider for a really long time. And I was out in the field a lot. I was climbing into really high tractor trailers, and I'm 5 feet tall. I was wearing steel toe boots, fire retardant clothing, and class 3 vests and safety goggles every day. And I
love this.
I loved the challenge. I loved the fact that, and now I have boys, so it's great that when we pass, you know, anything, I can tell them if it's single axle, tandem axle, if it has DEF, if it's I can, if it's Kenworth, I can tell them all about that. One of the big things, very challenging, and I liked that. At first I was very scared because it's a very intense job. It's a very intense job. But I loved it. I loved being able to be out in the field. Prior to that, I was in the veterinary world, and specifically in veterinary dermatology in Richmond with an amazing doctor in Richmond. If you're ever blessed to see her, her name is Dr. Nicola Williamson. She's fantastic. I was with her for a long time in Richmond, and veterinary dermatology. And again, I was out. We went out and saw horses on farms with skin condition. We saw birds. We saw, we skin tested and did allergy testing on dogs that I was lifting up. And again, you know, I'm 5 feet tall. I just love being able to physically be able to do something, not just mentally, but I really love being able to physically help. And I'm not sure why. It just might be something in my personality or DNA, but that's kind of how I've always been. So I guess it's just kind of in my system, Kristen. I don't know, but I've never had a sit down desk job. And I don't think that would be using my, passion for being able to move around, a lot. But one day I'm sure my body's going to be like, okay. But I thoroughly enjoy being able to be out doing things. I've always been that way prior to this journey. So it was no surprise to my husband that I wanted to start volunteering or doing something as soon as possible after we came home for the hospital and I had already lost my job due to being out for so long. It was not a surprise, for him at all. And he's been very supportive and, loves also, that it makes everyone happy. It makes Finn happy, which is, number one. It makes me happy, to be able to go and do things with him. A lot of people wonder, like, where's Mason? Why doesn't he do this? Well, Mason is the totally opposite personality. We've tried to take him, to some of the things like the schools, and it's very overwhelming for him. He absolutely loves his school. He's been going there since he was 12 weeks old. And he absolutely loves it. He has his own world and his own little friends there. And he loves telling us about it when he comes home and playing with Finn and teaching him things that he's learned in school. And that's his thing. And he's exactly like Michael, very analytical, likes schedule. And that's his thing. So I've tried to pull him out twice, actually, to save our family money. And he just didn't thrive at all. It just wasn't working well, at home. So he absolutely loves having that. And we're very blessed for him that they've been his consistency when we've been away from him for a very long time, that he's been able to have those amazing teachers and friends and fellow parents to give him some hugs when they know that mommy and daddy aren't exactly, nearby. So that's wonderful.
That is wonderful. That's awesome. They sound like night and day. Kelly, you have Mason, who is he just said type A, and then you have little Finn, who is a party animal, and he just loves it. That's so funny.
Michael's mini-me and my mini-me in both looks and personality. I feel like I look like, and he's more like me, very energized, and kind of schedule is, what's schedule? We'll just do what we can. And Michael are just, they're two peas in a pod. Mason will sit and watch, Spider-Man. What kid that age likes, like an adult kind of, they like cartoons, and he will sit and watch that entire thing with Michael and they'll just sit there. And Finn is like, can't get him to sit and watch it for 2 seconds. But they love each other and balance each other out very well. And that's how Michael and I are, that's their mini-me's and they love each other and we're
right.
It works itself out. So.
I love it. That's awesome. And again, if you've just joined us, we are with Kelly Blumenthal right now. She is Finn's mom. Prayers for Finn. Thank you for joining us. So finally, Kelly, we saw the pictures of your amazing time and weekend in Philadelphia. Tell us about that. It looked amazing.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. It was such a great honor. So the American Heart Association in different territories of the state puts on a heart ball every year. And it's a wonderful chance for doctors, nurses, families in the community who are interested in heart disease, affected by heart disease, to come and see presenters and honorees and speakers and help towards the cause of raising not just awareness, but very crucial funds for heart research. And it's just a wonderful evening. And it takes, a year in the making. Once it ends, they go and they start planning the next one. They're all a little bit different. So with this one, they had 2 different awards that they presented to a doctor and a board member. And their stories were just so inspiring, and everything that they've been able to accomplish, and still, their family still loves them, even though their time has been, so invested in this, and what they've been able to accomplish, for stroke patients and everything. And then at the very end, they honored our family, and that was really, really special. So I was able to give a speech at the podium, which was really nice. There were over 900 attendees, and then including employees that were helping at the event. It was over 1,000 people. It was just an amazing event. It was, black tie. And at the end of the night, through all of the donations of items to be auctioned off, and then all of the just generous giving by the donors that were there, just that heart ball raised $2.2 million in one evening.
Oh my goodness.
For heart research. Yes.
That's incredible, Kelly.
I just got the number this morning, and I'm always anxious to see it because, people are so generous. They donated, some people donated a trip to Africa. Some people donated a Volvo. It's just amazing. All because of something, everyone's, we go to the schools and we're like, raise your hand if you have a heart, everybody. Raise your hand if you know someone who's been affected by heart disease for whatever reason, whether you have a grandfather, a relative, or a sibling that takes medicine or has to see a cardiologist. Everybody. Yeah. It's the number one killer, and stroke is the number 5. Everyone, some way or somehow, knows somebody or knows somebody that knows somebody that's affected by it. And a lot of people don't know this, or a lot of people may assume that we are very passionate about this because of our son, Finn. But in actuality, my family has been volunteering for the American Heart Association since the 60s and raising heart awareness since the 60s. So I continued that when I was younger. And in 2nd grade, my dad collapsed in front of me and my brother during a Sports for Kids game in Richmond. And it was very scary. And he was rushed to the hospital, and he ended up having several heart procedures, including a defibrillator, a pacemaker, complications from that, and then ultimately an open chest, open heart procedure to have a valve replacement. So the passion, even at a young age, grew even more seeing my dad go through that. Sure. Knowing my family's, background and involvement in it. And then lo and behold, I'm born with a child who needs open heart surgery almost, right after they're born, and then multiple, surgeries after that. But it was very comforting for me when I did find out about my son's condition, knowing that I had seen how far technology had come in my dad. My dad, when he first got a defibrillator, he had defibrillator and pacemaker, but at the time they were separate devices in separate parts of his body. Now one device can do the same thing. When my dad first got his defibrillator, bad analogy, but it was the size of a pack of cigarettes, and it was 2 pounds, and it was in his abdomen. And the battery life on it and the life on it would only last about 2 years. So he had to have surgery for that, and the wires, and open, his chest, shortly after that. And he's had several since then, and they just kept getting smaller and smaller. And now he has one device that does both. It's up in his shoulder, and it's the size of between a quarter and a silver dollar, and it lasts 10, 20 years. And he's monitored at home from a wireless device for his
That's amazing.
So knowing that and growing up with that, when I found out about Finn and, knowing that he would need these surgeries, within 3 years, it just resonated with me that I knew that technology would be changing the more we had the funding for heart research. And I care about heart research because of my son, but I equally care about heart research for all the people affected by it, including my family in the 60s, my family previously, and my dad for, everything that he's gone through. So it's just been kind of a passion for a really long time. So standing up on the stage and being able to, have that honor for our family, for our volunteer work, and, spreading awareness meant more than, just it's just the heart disease awareness in general is just such a huge, passion. I can just help more on a very personal level in the CHD community because that's our current battle, now. But we just met some amazing people, and it was just such an honor. And the boys had a great night. They're night owls, so we're in little tuxes and dancing the night away. And it was really funny because they're the only kids. And the room is so big, and there's, over 900 people. So some people didn't know that there were kids there, and no one knew, that we were coming out, until the end. So it was really funny in the end to see people see these, tiny little tuxedo kids, running around, trying to stare at the strobe lights and jump up on the boxes and, stare at everything. But they did
That's
great.
So cute.
They had such a good time. It was in Philadelphia, and that's so the reason for that was because the choice for Philadelphia, for our honor in Philadelphia, since there are heart balls all over, because Finn just had his most recent surgery there, and we've been with that team since last January, so over a year now, and we were able to meet more of the doctors at not just CHOP, but at Penn Medicine and Penn, which were just incredible. Some neurologists as well from the stroke side, and a lot of the nurses. It's a huge hospital, so there's no way, we've even touched the surface of meeting, and it was just really inspiring to meet more and more people who are making a difference. And they all think they're making such a small difference, and they're not. They're so humble. So it was just a good night. We're very grateful to the American Heart Association for even inviting us. But to receive an honor was pretty special. But $2.2 million in one night. And it started at around 6 o'clock. So from 6 to the auction ended at 9. So in 3 hours, raising $2.2 million.
That's incredible.
Is astounding and amazing. It's so incredible. So
that is so amazing.
Yeah.
So Kelly, we're going to wrap this up here, but before we do, where can people find you this month? If they want to see you, or if they want to interact with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so we've been posting a lot of events, but of course a lot of it has been weather dependent because I'm in outside of DC area. So we've had, hit or miss. So if you're local and you're not busy tomorrow, the Malawi's Pizza at Spotsylvania Town Center, they do these events all the time for American Heart, which is so sweet. They are having an event all day long from their hours. They open at 11, all through, the evening until they close, where when you go, a portion of the proceeds for the day are going to go to the American Heart Association in honor of Heart Month. And we will be there from 11 to 12 or 12:30 tomorrow, participating in the event and helping the funding, having some lunch, saying hi to people. I think it's supposed to be decent weather tomorrow, so no snow or ice or flurries. And we will be in schools all throughout the rest of the month. We will also be in DC at the Marietta Hope Foundation Gala that helps heart families and heart research in Washington, DC on, I think it's February 24th. It's the last Saturday in February. There are still some tickets available for that.
Okay.
And then just some other things that are, again, kind of weather dependent. We're kind of trying to settle in on it, but we may be at your school. That's the most of our day. But
that's
yeah,
very exciting. That's awesome. Well, and I want to say on a personal note, Kelly, this month means a lot to me because of my own father, who passed last February due to a heart aneurysm. So it does affect so many people out there. And, while it's obviously not CHD, heart diseases affect us all. And so I just want to thank you so much for your time tonight, Kelly. and for being with us tonight. And before we finish it, we need you to pick a number between 1 and 50.
Oh, 37.
37. All right, give us just a second.
Uh-oh.
All right, so drum roll, please. Waiting. Kimberly Pitts.
Oh,
you
yeah.
won the free yogurt tonight. Yay! We want to thank everyone for their questions tonight. We had Lori, Kimberly, Kristen. Thank you so much for asking questions, being part of it. I had a great time. I hope you had a great time, Kelly.
I did. Thank you.
And, if you know somebody who you think would be good on our show, please email me at projectjustlikeYou@gmail.com. We're always looking for new people to interview, advocates, people who are parents, authors, politicians, people who are making a difference, people who are, as we say, making part of the movement. So we want to thank you so much for being part of this tonight. And thank you again, Kelly. We had a lot of fun with you.
Thank you, Molly.
All right, everyone, have a great evening, and we'll see you again next Monday at 9 p.m.